afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this launch of Potluck and Other Stories, a collection of really lighthearted, fun short stories by author Lynne Murphy, as well as a little bit darker touch, a novella titled A Damaged Heart, which is included in Lynne's collection. And we're really glad to have you all come out today on April 23rd, on this wonderful April afternoon, and hope you'll stay with us to meet Lynne and get to know about her work. Thank you. I'm your host, Donna Carrick, and I'm really pleased to see everybody here, and we're going to have some fun. This is a very informal launch, so feel free to leave your mute off. It's not like most where everybody has to leave it on. You can leave it off and feel free to shout out any greetings or any hellos or anything you want anywhere along the line, or ask any questions you like. And I'm going to let Lynne say a couple of words here.
Well, I'm really, really happy to see. I've got somebody here from Jersey. I've got somebody here from Winnipeg. I've got somebody here from Kelowna, British Columbia. And this is Ottawa, Deirdre from Ottawa. And then most of the rest of you are sort of neighborhood people, or there's Joan and Vicky and Rosalind and a whole lot of other people. And I thought, we can't be together, but I was sort of hoping that people would feel like we were at Sleuth of Baker Street, where we usually hold our book launches, and that we're all together and that we can just sort of chime in and talk to everybody talk among themselves, and not among themselves, but make comments and so on, and join in. So welcome, I'm glad to see you. And Donna, I think I'll let you start, sort of maybe start asking the comments, the things we wanted to talk about.
I'll just remind everyone that we are recording, just in case anybody isn't aware, and we will be posting the launch on YouTube. So if any of your friends have missed it or anything, you can always encourage them to go and visit the YouTube link at a later date and catch up there. But just in all fairness to everybody, so you know, no ripping off your clothes or anything like that, please.
Why not? As was my consent.
Once you get the brownies or the gummies into you.
Well, I was saying, I didn't have time to bake brownies, but Margot went out and bought some gummy bears. So she's going to be eating gummy bears during this. So if you have your own gummy bears, feel free to participate. So Donna, over.
I have my cup of tea.
Excellent. I've got my cup of tea too.
Drinking her afternoon tea. Hi, Chris. Chris belongs to my the seniors club that I belong to.
Oh, wonderful! Wonderful. Good to meet somebody
on Pharmacy, where I play bridge and so on. Yeah.
Now, most of us love to read a funny story, but for me, I could not write a funny story if my life depended on it. Lynne, you've got a long history of writing humor in your both crime and non-crime stories. Can you tell us what drives you and what motivates you to keep the things so lighthearted and so funny?
I honestly don't know, Donna. I try to write stories that aren't funny, that are you know, sort of serious crime stories, and somehow jokes keep creeping in. And I want to read you a little bit from the very first story of the Golden Elders, because this is sort of one of the things where it got funny and it wasn't supposed to be. This is where the man goes around turning off the lights in the condo all the time to save on power, and he turns them off in the ladies' change room in the swimming pool, and the ladies decide they resent this, so they decide they're going to give him a shock first thing in the morning, and they all go down there. And they take off all their clothes, and they're wearing masks, and then they hide, and they're going to jump out at him when he comes in to the room. So this is, the ladies met the next morning at 10 to 6 in the ladies' change room. They all stripped to the skin, wrapped themselves in towels for warmth, and donned their masks. They lurked around the corner, out of sight of the change room door, trying hard not to giggle. It's just like a surprise party, Isabel whispered. The one we had for Dolly's 90th birthday, where we all hid and then jumped out at her. There was a moment of silence, and then Bessie said, Dolly should have told someone she had a weak heart. Now, that's not a funny line in itself. But it's because it's a surprise, I think, to you that it's funny. And that's what seems to keep coming up in the humor. And Joan O'Callahan's here. Joan and I have been sort of mulling over humor. Joan is going to be the moderator of the humorous crime stories panel. Do you want to say something about Maple Leaf Mysteries, Joan? Well, to give
Actually, I would, Lynn. Thank you very much. I was hoping for an opportunity to put in a plug for the Maple Leaf Mystery Conference, but also if you like to see how humor can meld with crime, and it can, then I invite you to come to the Maple Leaf Mystery Conference at the end of May. Our panel, which is on humor, is going to feature Lynn. She's one of the panelists. Mel Campbell, who's another one who's known as a very funny lady. Caro Souls, and AJ, it's his last name. I was going to say
Tyler,
but that's
is
not
it Tyler?
You know what, it's in the other room, but I'll get it. Anyway, it should be a rollicking good time because we're going to hopefully explore what is it that makes these things so funny.
And what time and day is that, Joan?
We don't know yet. We haven't been given the actual schedule.
Okay, so people stay tuned. Yes.
Yeah, but there's all over. It's all over Facebook. It's the last few days in May. Maple Leaf Mystery Conference.
Okay.
I will post it when we know exactly when it is on Facebook. Yeah.
You raised a really good point, Lynn, about the surprise element of humor. And that's something that Alec and I have talked about a lot. Like what really makes certain stand-up comics really work. And it's the surprise. It's not that the jokes themselves are so far-fetched or anything. I mean, they're things that most people, even non-humorists like myself, could come up with. But it's the fact that they're positioned in such a way and they take you by surprise. And that's what brings on the laughter reaction. And is that something that you have to work at, or does that come naturally to you in your writing, or?
It comes naturally, and it always sort of surprises me too when something funny comes up like that. But the story that I have coming out in the Crime Writers of Canada have an anthology coming out in May to celebrate their 40th anniversary, and the story that I've written for that is very grim. I don't think there's one laugh in it, and I don't know how that happened. It's something from the past that's been haunting me. And so maybe that stayed with me all the time, that it bothered me at the past, and that stayed with me. Dawn, is there anybody else in the waiting room? Because I noticed that Rosemary and Rosemary said she was going to be here, and
oh,
there's some more.
There we go.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
More people in the waiting room.
Oh, good.
I thought there
There's
were
Louise.
things that people could join on.
Oh my goodness. Mel, there's Mel. Oh, Carol. Wow.
And Sylvia, there's
And Louise.
Sylvia. Louise,
There's
Madonna.
Louise.
Hi,
Phyllis,
Madonna from
Phyllis.
Ottawa. Phyllis from England. Good Lord. Phyllis
goodness.
Phyllis Woodruff, who is down there, is an old friend of mine, and she lives in England. So she has taken the trouble to attend, which is just lovely. And there's Catherine. Hi, Catherine. How lovely, everybody. And Rosemary and Aunt Melody's here.
Wow.
Oh, Melody, where are you? Melody, we were just talking about humorous writing. This is sort of anybody can join in chat. So
yes,
Melody
you don't
Campbell
need
has
to be
been
muted.
called.
You can unmute yourselves
Yes,
on
you
entry.
can contribute,
This is a
Melody.
very informal gathering. And my apologies, I had put the settings that anyone could join without needing to be admitted, but I guess it didn't save. And so I've got to keep an eye and make sure I admit everyone.
There's Carol,
It's
too.
great to see you all.
Hi,
Feel free
Phyllis.
to unmute and throw out any questions.
That anyway, Joan was talking about the Maple Leaf Mystery Conference, where we're all going to, and Carol too, going to be on the same panel. So that welcome. So where were we?
Oh, you were telling me about how the comic timing, the surprise element, comes naturally to you. And just before that, we've been talking about the Maple Leaf Mystery Conference, and that's where Melody's ears must have been ringing, because we had mentioned Melody for that. But you were just telling us how you come by that comic timing, and that the story that's going to be in the Canadian Crime Writers anthology is quite a dark one.
Yes, and also the novella that's in Potluck is fairly
Damaged
dark. It's about a woman who's had a very miserable childhood, and it has sort of blighted her whole life. She was raised by unloving grandparents, and it actually has a redeeming end. Although Shirley, where are you? Shirley said she didn't like the ending. She thought that there was going to be a tragic ending, and she said there's almost a happy ending. So,
And that's what I was looking for.
yes, yeah.
Or
But I said,
one of your many comedy things at the end.
no, it's not comic either.
No,
It's
it
just
wasn't.
almost happy. It's almost a happy ending. Yeah. And so anyway,
But I think she was going to kill her husband.
well, shh, don't tell people. Don't tell people.
Don't tell. Okay.
No spoilers, eh? No
Yeah.
spoilers.
Lynn,
Spoilers, spoiler alerts.
Lynn,
The
I
thing
have
with
a
the
question.
ending and the damaged heart, though, is I have a real pet peeve about overly formulated endings. And I know there's a number of people in here who would agree with me. And in a case like a damaged heart, without giving too much away, there's an ending that one would presume would take place. And I think maybe that's what your reader is referring to. And I, for one, am really glad that you didn't. You took a different turn, because things can get just too formulaic. We see it all the time, you know. The bad guy must get his comeuppance, and the good person must get their reward. And life just isn't like that.
Well, I hope that that people are going to be satisfied. And I did tell Shirley something about that she might have missed that made her a little bit happier about it not killing her husband or her brother, or killing her brother,
Whoever it was.
yes, whatever the relationship was. So anyway, so to move on from the humor, something I wanted to talk about was how wonderful it is having a writing group. I have belonged to a writing group. Sylvia, where are you? Down there. For me, anyway. Sylvia and I have been in the same writing group for 30 years this fall.
Is it 30 years? Oh my God.
Yes, it's
Wow.
30 years. It's the same age as the Sisters in Crime group in the Toronto Sisters in Crime group. We met actually at a writing conference in the summer, a writing program at Humber College, and then met up again at VoucherCon, and then we were among the people founding Sisters in Crime here in Toronto. And but Madeline and Rosemary's there, and
Rosemary, yeah.
Joan was in the writing group for a while, and I don't see
Kathy is there too.
oh, is Kathy Dunphy here? I didn't, yeah. Oh, there she is. She's down there. Yeah,
And Jane-
Kathy
and
and
Jane
Jane
is
Burfield
here.
are
Jane
in
is
the
here,
writing
yeah.
group now, and they have been really influential in my putting my stories together and getting the book published, and especially Rosemary. Rosemary's a very persuasive person, and she kept coming at me.
Yes.
Lynn, you're not getting any younger, she said.
Nicely put, Rosemary. Oh, I just want to remind everybody, this is a really informal gathering. Feel free to remove your mute. I think the Zoom settings puts you all on mute when you come in. Feel free to take that mute off and jump in as you will, because we're so happy to have you all here, and you know, feel free. I know that Madeline's got a question. Oh, before we move on to that question though, tell me, Lynn, what are the advantages of having a good writing group?
Well, the advantages are sometimes you get stuck and you don't know what you should do about something, and people, and so we have what we call brainstorming, and we sit around and ask everybody to make suggestions, and quite often that helps you clear the way. You realize you've been going down the wrong path and you should be going in another direction, or just small things like the story, the title of the book, Potluck. I owe that to Joan O'Callaghan, when we were in the same writing group, and I said, I had a long title, and I said, I don't like this title, it's too much for the story. And Joan said, call it Potluck. And it was so such a perfect title. And then when I was putting the book together, I thought potluck means taking what you get. You know, you have to take potluck. You ask somebody to dinner and you say, but you'll have to take potluck, which means you take whatever comes. And I thought, when you get a book of short stories, you take whatever comes. So that's where potluck came from. But
It's
and
perfect.
the other, you know, there are other advantages to being in a writing group too, but it's wonderful having the support from other people and having them, knowing they've got your back. I guess they've got your back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One thing I
It's
love
good
about
to
the
be able-
title is the potluck, the pun, where you're holding or you're by a plate of
Yeah,
brownies with a
that was
little
my
Yes.
question.
marijuana
That was
plant
my
growing
question.
nearby.
Yes.
How did you come up with the cover? The cover is perfect.
cover's
And that's
perfect.
you being evil on the cover, right?
Yes.
Well, I have Sarah Carrick to thank for that wonderful cover. She said to me, we had Donna and she and I had a meeting about the book, and she said, I'd like to use you as a model. And I said, oh, I don't know about that. You know? That's a good idea. And so anyway, she showed me the draft of and I thought, oh, I love that. And I've never been a cover girl in my whole life. So, you know, you have to reach your 80s to become a cover girl.
Golden cover girl.
Yes, a golden girl. And
nobody,
anyway,
nobody
thanks,
can
Sarah,
claim-
if you're here.
Sarah's here, definitely. I know she's heard you. And the thing about it is, nobody can claim your cover is not 100% original, because you're not on anyone else's cover, right?
That's absolutely true. Oh, and while I'm thanking people, I want to thank Deirdre Bradley, who's here too. Deirdre, wave or something so people know who you are. Deirdre,
I'm
wave.
over here. Hi.
Okay. Deirdre took the author photograph that's on the back, and
it's
Sarah
I love
used
that
the
picture.
colors
Lovely.
for the cover. So thank you, Deirdre.
Cell
for
phone
doing
gets all the credit. The cell, it was my new Samsung.
Yeah, well, it turned out very well. It makes me look better than I do in real life. So that's always good.
Oh, I'd recognize you anywhere from it.
Yeah.
Lynn, other than being a longtime friend of Donna's, the only thing I have in common right now is that I can read. So I can't offer anything else. However, the title of that caught my attention. So I immediately said to Donna, I want to be in on that. So you may get people that you might not have got, but you will just from that title.
It's a
brought me
terrific book,
a
Vicki.
ready-
I really
so now I'm ready to read it. Do you know what I mean?
think it'll
that's
give you a lot of happiness reading it. It's a really good
and a
book.
great, it's a great title and a great picture on the front. I love it.
Well, thank you,
Yes.
Vicki, and thanks to Sarah for the picture. I think she should get some. Sylvia said you'll probably sell a lot more books on the strength of that cover. So
Yeah.
I think so,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I know that Madeline had a question for you about character development, I think.
Yeah,
it was.
I do. Yeah, I just sort of riffing on what you and Lynn were talking about earlier, which is, you know, like Lynn's decision to go darker. And I wondered why you decided to do that, Lynn. Why did you decide to sort of delve more into the dark side of humanity?
I didn't decide to do it, Madeline. Honest to gosh, it just happens. You know, you start to write something and it turns out funny, and then you start to write something else and it turns out grim. And the story for Crime Writers of Canada is very grim. And the story in here, actually, there's no laughs in The Trespassers, which is the one unpublished story in Potluck. That is about dementia, and I think it's more of a horror story than the horror of dementia creeping up on somebody. But you don't decide what you're what you're going to write. I don't know, where's Melody? I wanted to ask her about her.
Yeah,
I
because
think she's-
Mel said that the story she has
Yes.
coming up in the CWC anthology is quite grim
Is
too.
dark,
And Mel
yeah.
usually writes humor. Is Mel there? And
Yeah, I am.
Was here. Oh, there
Mel,
she
why
is.
did you decide to go dark with that one? Do you?
To prove that I could. You know, you get a reputation for only writing a certain type of thing. And I found, I find that people expect me to be funny all the time and they're disappointed when I'm not. And I was even told that I wasn't considered for a contest once because I had written something grim rather than funny.
What?
Yeah. And they just didn't think it was up to my standard because it wasn't funny. When I had the opportunity here to go in blind, I thought, okay, do it now. Go, take this opportunity to be really grim, see if it warrants being chosen. So, it was more to prove it to myself. I, like you, Lynn, I think we've talked about this before. I can't stay in a dark world for a year writing a novel. It's just, I just can't do that. I find it brings me down too much. So for me, I'm much better off doing my dark and short stories, that only take 2 weeks to do, as opposed to a year long. I keep my lighter stuff for the longer work. Thank you for asking me that, by the way.
And Lynn,
Yeah,
I think The Lady Killer, the one that you have coming out in the CWC anthology, that's actually based on some real life experience too, isn't it?
It's well, part of it is from my real life, and part of it is a story that was told me when I was a teenager. So it goes back something like 70 years in my life. But a story that somebody told about a man whose girlfriends had unfortunate accidents, a lot of them. And that was a real, a true story someone told me. And I sort of put somebody I knew into the story and wrote it. But yes,
My
and
pussy sting.
when you're writing about something like that, you can't you can't get funny really about a topic like that. There's no way you can be humorous. So the novella, which has also a lot of deaths in it, there is my protagonist. I won't call her a heroine because she's not heroic, but my protagonist does have a sardonic sense of humor, which surfaces now and then, which is kind of a saving grace with her. Actually, it makes her almost likable. Yeah.
And one of the things about being in such a long-standing writing critique group is that it allows us to experiment, right? So to stretch ourselves. And so you say, speaking personally, I had this idea about an older woman protagonist, and I thought I'd try it out on the writing group, and you guys were so enthused about it. It eventually became a story that was published in The Dame Was Trouble. And it's the same with you, Lynn. I mean, it allows you to stretch yourself. When you first introduced us to the novella.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, with Kirsty.
It was a change from my regular way of life, my regular way of writing.
Yeah. I
What
remember.
else were we going to want to talk about, Donna?
One of the other things that we had on the list was where your ideas come from about writing about the elderly and what made you put your short stories together in a book.
Well, one thing that made me put the short stories together in a book was because they were all over the place, and I thought I want to have them collected so that at some point, somebody can look at them and you can say they're all in one place. And now I've written about 4 more since I've got the book published. And also, did I say this before, that when somebody says to me, what did you do? When I'm really old and somebody says to me, what did you do during COVID, Lynn? I can say, I published a book, which
Yeah.
quite proud of. But the ideas, so many of the ideas come from actual happenings. For instance, my sister who's down there, I haven't seen her face at all, but I can see she's here, Pat Carrick, and she told me she lives in a has an apartment in a senior's residence, and she told me about one of her neighbors who left their door unlocked and went out and came back and found a man in her bed. And the man was wearing nothing but black jockey shorts. And I thought, what a wonderful story. And can I read you the opening of the story? Because
Yes,
I'm writing it right now. This is going to be for my
That never happens to me.
This is in the Golden Bessie Bottomley looked down in shock at the man in her bed. He had certainly not been there when she left to play bridge 3 hours earlier, and he was dead. Betty had buried 2 husbands, so she knew what a dead man looked like. But both husbands had had the decency to die in hospital, not in the bed she slept in every night. The man looked vaguely familiar. Bessie turned on the bedside light to examine him more closely, and she recognized him. It was Mr. Thompson, who had lived on the 4th floor of her condo building. She didn't know his first name. People always referred to him and his wife as the Thompsons. They were not sociable people, never came to the potluck suppers or the Christmas caroling. How had he got into her apartment? She must have left the door unlocked. It was one of her bad habits. Had he come here under his own steam and crawled into her bed, thinking he was in his own home? People with dementia did that, she knew, but Mr. Thompson seemed a bit young to be suffering from dementia. She supposed she ought to call security and have them contact Mrs. Thompson, but how was she going to explain his presence in her bed? She couldn't. She needed a friend to help her in this situation. Charlotte Manners had been a nurse and would be used to dead bodies. Bessie walked out of her bedroom, shutting the door firmly behind her, and went to the kitchen to use the phone there. Charlotte answered after several rings. Charlotte, Bessie said, can you come up to my place right away? I need help. I'm in my nightgown, Bessie. I just saw you at bridge. Is it urgent? There's a dead man in my bed. There was a brief pause, then Charlotte said, of course there is, Bessie. I'll be up right away. That came, as I said, when my sister told me about this. She lives in a senior's residence, and she told me about this friend of hers, neighbor of hers, who'd gone out, left her door unlocked, and came back to find a man in her bed wearing only black jockey shorts. Now, he wasn't dead, he was alive, but since I'm writing a crime story, I had to kill my interloper off. So this goes on to the ladies trying to figure out, did the man die in there? Did somebody put him there, etc.? And the complications. Hilarity ensues.
Hilarity ensues, exactly. I love it.
I love the tension created, because the first thing they don't do is call the police.
Yes.
The reader is waiting for that to happen,
and what Bessie says, Charlotte said, when she sees that the man is half naked, she said, Bessie, you and he weren't. And so Bessie says, I'm not telling anyone. I want to get him out of here, because even you, Charlotte, thought we might be having an affair. You know, what are other people going to think? It's going to be a scandal in the condo. So that's why they decide they have to move him. So
the nice thing about it too is that's very visual. If you like all of that scene in your mind, you're already playing it all out, and you can see this person right there. So it really brings you into it. That's good. It's really
yes, this man in the black jockey shorts.
Yeah.
That is very, very much what Lynne's writing is like. It kind of just draws you in because it's so organic. Like, you really can see these people, and not just the elderly in the condo. It's also in Woman Aglow. You walk through that day with our person without giving too much away, and you're there with her, and you're really, it's a very organic experience. The character development is really something. I know that Madeline was starting to ask you about character development as well. Madeline, you had a question about character development.
Yeah, well, how did you come up with the characters for the Golden Elders? Because they're also
actually they were people I knew. I just sort of took some qualities from some people and qualities from other and combined them. You know how you do. And the one who they kill off, who they jump out and frighten in The Troublemaker, he was a combination of two irritating men in our condo. One of them who was constantly planting flowers in the flower. We had a color scheme of mauve, pink, and blue, and he was constantly planting orange marigolds in the flower beds. And we would dig them up and put them in another bed. We couldn't kill flowers, we would put them in another bed, and he would go back and get them and plant. And then the other man was always turning off lights. He was a conservationist and taking cardboard out of the garbage and putting it into recycling and so on. And so I combined the two of them into one person. So that's, but they were people I knew that, and Bessie is, well, all of them, were people I knew, but sort of combined into various forms, various combinations. And I hope nobody sues. Nobody ever sues me,
I was
so.
just going to say, as writers, and there's a number of writers in here today. I mean, a number of very talented writers and very prolific writers in here today. And the writers of fiction will always tell you this is fiction. It's not based on any person or event. But the fact of the matter is we're not blind, deaf, and dumb. We walk around this world, we see people, and there are so many odd occurrences and strange happenings. It can't help but get into your writing. So I sometimes, if I'm in a little closer to honest moment, I'll say it's a composite. Which
Yes, it's a
you can pretty
composite.
much take to mean
That's
that
a
is
good
somebody
word.
across the street.
That's a good word, Donna. And
Yes.
we're getting close to closing time. So I just wanted to mention for the people in Toronto that the book is available for sale at Sleuth of Baker Street, our favorite mystery bookstore here in Toronto. So, you can also get it on Amazon. So.
Yes, you can get it on Amazon. It's available in ebook. You can get it for Nook, Sony, Kobo, any of those. It's available in paperback and hardcover. And because we were shut down for a few minutes, we actually have a few minutes extra that we can do. If anybody's got any questions they'd like to throw out to Lynne, now's your big chance.
No, Lynne, I was just asking, don't you miss this building with all the inspiration it brought?
Yes, Louise still lives in that building. So.
Still there, and there's still weird people in here.
Any in black shorts in your bed? I hope not.
Well, luckily that was my sister's story about the man in the bed, not from her where she lives in her senior's residence, not the condo where Louise is living. So. So I still have people, and Shirley, where are you, Shirley? Shirley,
There I am.
bits from her building too. So I've still got.
Well, I'm in a retirement home, and I know there's one, and I think it's in this book. And it has to do with seniors trying to get in and out of a van from a retirement home. And that is always funny. It doesn't matter where you live, trying to get in and out of a van.
I know Jane had a question too. Jane, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
It's more a comment. One thing I thoroughly enjoy about your stories, Lynne, is your use of different communities you've lived in, across Canada. I find that that's endlessly enlightening in a way for me to try and imagine what it was like to grow up in Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Saskatchewan?
Definitely Saskatchewan, yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I love I find your stories so refreshing because I look at you and you look so nice. And then I love your stories. I love the wryness. I love the dark sense of humor. I love the twists and the turns. I just wanted to say how much I enjoy your writing.
Thank you, Jane. Jane is a member of my writing group, so she has to say things like that. She's one of the people who is in many of these stories. No, somebody else had their hand up, and I can't remember who it was. Oh,
Yeah.
Carol.
It was me. I don't have anything terribly clever to say, but I just wanted to say that you all know, of course, that I can barely see the end of my nose. And when I first saw your book cover, I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? Lynne's written a cookbook.
Indeed, Carol. Indeed. Give that lady another gummy, will you, Lynn?
Well, I had to explain to Sarah at first because she hadn't read the story, and I had to explain to her that potluck was referring to various things, not just potluck parties and potluck suppers, but also the ingestible pots.
And you probably shocked Sarah to the
Yes,
core of
I
that.
have these gummies here that I was going to hand around if we had a sleuth of Baker Street, but unfortunately we're not meeting, so I can just eat them myself.
I'll be right over.
Many at one time.
Well, if nobody else has any questions, I just want to thank Lynn for coming out and being such a good sport and talking about her works. And it's such a terrific book. I really strongly urge you all to go out and get a copy of it, either an e-copy or a paperback, or even the hardcover is available. You can find it at Amazon, at Sleuth of Baker Street, at Barnes and Nobles, at Kobo, all those places. And thanks to all of you for coming out and for withstanding the great hack of April 23rd.
I think that was actually, that was so exciting. That's never happened.
Well, you've arrived when you have to be hacked at an event.
And thank you, Donna, very much for hosting, and thanks to everybody for coming, and thank you to my writing group for being so supportive and helping me get this done. And Deirdre for the cover for the
and our friends around the world.
And our friends around the world. We have friends from Jersey and Jersey, the island of Jersey, and from England and from BC. Oh, and thank you, Catherine. Catherine is a playwright who I worked with her on improvising a play she has written to present to seniors groups about mercy killing. So our medical assistants in dying, it's not a funny play at all, but we had a very interesting time. So thank you for coming, Catherine. That was lovely.
Thank you, everybody.
Everything you write
Thank you
is
so much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Dusty road, a man alone. His vital signs go on hold. And I don't know what you've been told, but the years have turned my eyes gold. And I told you what you told me, we'd never be in the same boat for free. Yet it rides, let it rock.